All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Good to see you.
Hello.
Paul Tranny here with special guest Mt.Mograph, otherwise known as Matt Jolka. Good to have you here, buddy.
Thank you, Paul.
We tried to get this guy out like a year ago, and he couldn't. His dog was sick.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. But
we finally got him. So we're
made-
super excited to have you here.
made the connect. Thank you so much for having me. It's really
No,
cool to be
definitely.
here.
We have you for 2 hours this morning. Again, this Pacific time, 9 to 11. And yeah, we got a fun day planned, guys. This is all around motion design. We have also a video producer. We also have a vlogger as well. So, in fact, let's go over the schedule right now, guys, really fast. So, first up, of course, Mt.Mograph with me at 11 a.m. D.W. Watterson, who's a movie director, and Simone Smith, the video editor, so it's like a combo. Jason Levine will be hosting them, so that'll be really fun. And then we have another motion designer at 1 p.m., Andrew Embry, awesome motion designer working in After Effects. Knows you. You guys worked together before.
Yes, sir.
And then at 3 p.m., we have Rachel Nguyen as well, YouTuber, does a lot of vlogging and everything. So I think we're covering like quite the gamut of everything from motion to producing and everything. So content, all that fun stuff. So After Effects mostly the next couple hours, but also Premiere Pro, which will be fun. And speaking of Premiere Pro and all of that, let's kind of talk about another thing, because in the fancy interface, if you guys are on AdobeLive.com, a couple things going on. We encourage you to enter this contest that's going on. It's Make It Impactful. So you could click on that button and check out that link and that contest. So essentially you could, by submitting your project, you can win Creative Cloud, $1,000 gift card, and then 1 hour mentoring session with Julesy or Rachel. And let's keep in mind when I say good old Rachel, that's Rachel Nguyen, who's going to be on this afternoon. So it's like you get to win training with her, which is real potentially with either her or the other person. So that's really cool. So that's the contest, guys. Check that out. That's largely Premiere Pro, but also next to that, down in Adobe Live, you have that little button, download the template. So that's a template that you made, right? You put together this template?
It's a simple little Premiere lower third that you can use using the new motion template thing that Adobe has released. So it's pretty cool. It's really good for editors in Premiere.
Yeah.
So
That's
excited
awesome.
to dive into that too.
Yeah, so it's fun, and you set that up in After Effects, and we'll be talking about this, and then you just export it out as a specific file format, and then in Premiere Pro, that's where you load it in, and that's where you get to, you just get to act like you did all the hard work that this guy did.
Maybe.
And benefit, from his hard work. So that's the idea.
Yeah, it should be cool to dive into that. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, good times. All right, Gelta Notatio, good to see you here. All right, guys. Yeah, let us know where you're from as well. Always kind of curious. It's morning here, so we're just sitting here drinking our. You have water.
I just have a water bottle. What do you got over there?
I don't know. It's either a cold brew or it's Guinness. We don't know.
Yeah, you got to keep that one.
It's
Looks
a
like
Guinness. We're getting this party started. So yeah, let us know where you're from, guys. Good to see where you guys are from. And good old Matt here is from. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Michigan, and now I've relocated to Denver, Colorado.
What a great place to live.
Yes,
I'd love to live there.
Might be from
yes,
there too.
I am.
Right?
I'm surprised I would have saw you on the plane yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, cool, man. Denver's fantastic. So yeah, it's good to have you here.
Thank you so
Fellow
much.
Denverite.
Yes.
Super cool. And you have a ton of files up. I've been talking way too much, man. I want to see your screen, actually, if you don't mind.
Sure thing. Yeah, no one wants to see my face anyway.
No, you're still there, by the way.
So I will, should I just be previewing this right now?
Yeah, go actually, pop that up like full screen. So this is a project. It looks like kind of like a demo or sizzle reel.
Yeah, so this is just a couple of quick files I put together to kind of go over the next 3 days. Some like illustrative styles from Illustrator brought into After Effects and then like kind of using a couple cool tricks to kind of make cool animation. I'm using some interesting techniques. So all of these are just kind of like trimmed up to be shorter little sections. And yeah, basically I think we're gonna just let people pick what they want to see, and we'll dive into the actual full project and not just like a piece.
Yeah, let this play for a little bit, because this is just, it's fun to kind of just see your work in general. Like, and again, I'm just like your hype man. I think you do fantastic stuff. You're all over YouTube too, so it's like, I think it's cool that you produce these like tutorial videos as well as working freelance as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can't show, right? For clients.
Unfortunately, I have most of my work is with the NDAs, so those get you. So I had to bring like some files that everyone can kind of play around with and use, which actually works out way better, because I think now we have files to play with.
Yeah, we'll have some files to play with. We'll give those to you guys. But again, when we asked where you guys are from, so we get a list of names coming in here. Toronto, I think I saw Beijing. I have no idea what time it is in Beijing, but it has to be like super early in the morning. Egypt in the house. I think I saw another Denverite as well.
St. Paul, Minnesota.
St. Paul.
Is that Minnesota?
And you said you used to live in Michigan?
Yes, sir.
Maybe somebody from Michigan might be there, but we will see in a second.
Yeah, we've got some cool questions. We will dive into the Blue Pyramid.
There you guys, they're liking the Blue Pyramid. That's cool. I think it's pretty hot.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you guys here. Issei, Gio, Karen, Chris, Catherine from Winnipeg, Sri Lanka in the house. Awesome. The engineer is from Silicon Valley, of course, as it said.
Nice.
So way cool to have everyone here. So Egypt, yeah, cool. Memphis.
Dang, all over. It's insane.
Tbilisi, New York City. Awesome, guys. So that's why we're doing this in the morning. We would love to do this 24 hours to hit you at your right time zone, but we just appreciate you guys, whether you're here in the morning or late in the evening into, say, the middle of the night, guys. We really appreciate you guys coming, and we're doing this for you, so that's why we want to hear kind of what you want to see. You know, we have a loose plan, but this is live, so we're just kind of roll with it. I think you have a lot of fun things going on here. If we could start, like, at least my thought is, since we're just starting out sort of day one in the morning, if we start with something simple, that would be fantastic.
Sure.
So, and you actually have, so I'm loving this. We have some illustrations, or you have some illustrations, right, of some of these. Might be a good place to start.
So some of these files were just created 100% in After Effects, and some were like imported from Illustrator into After Effects. So we have a couple different workflows we can play around with and just see what people want to see.
Yeah. So I'm just posting this right now, by the way, guys. These are just Illustrator files that you can download. So these are a lot of the Illustrator files that you used right here. Yep. So you could actually put some of this stuff together. I'm just so impressed with it. Even these, and you can even stop it at certain points too, right?
Yep.
We'd roll that through. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
But just some of these simple things, like the plus signs that rotate. Like, I assume that's maybe one comp that you've duplicated. I don't even know.
Yeah,
right?
well, we'll see.
So I don't even know. And are you going to give away all your tricks like this? Like, so simple.
So simple, but
and
it's
it kind
actually
of messes with your eyes.
Sure. Yeah, this is a fun little optical illusion. I don't know. I really like using expressions a lot and some interesting third-party tools. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these are some fun techniques that we'll be taking a look at.
Yeah, that you're going to tell us about. That's cool.
So
I love it, man. I mean, you share all stuff all the time, like online and everything, and we really appreciate. You know, some people are scared too. By the way, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to give up my trade secrets. They're gonna take my business." But
if you know it, you may as well share it. That's how I've always felt. You know, it's no fun keeping secrets to yourself. That's what they say, or somebody says. I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. yeah, and I love it. I think you only get better. Like these textures moving in here. I don't know if we could step back a little bit. Sorry.
Sure thing.
I keep pausing too late. Somebody mentioned you guys like the pyramid. I think the pyramid's super dope. If we can do some like 3D or like pseudo 3D, maybe we'll get to that on the third day. Would be awesome. But even if you step back at the textures right here, like some of those animated masks that's going on in there, and I'll just hit it and then stop it, but you could see some of those textures moving. Really cool.
Yeah, it's using some interesting little masks in there. I really have been loving using layer styles recently with like drop shadows with the noise. I highly recommend checking them out if you guys haven't got a chance to play around with layer styles yet. They are the best. It's kind of something that took me a while to actually get into, but now I find myself using them on like every project.
Okay.
So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's what I'm all about. So, and I'll post it again, but these are the Illustrator files. And I'm just going to open those up, and I think that might be a good place to start. Just kind of like take a look at sort of static graphics, and you know, just to see, you know, take something static and and see that it might look basic, but obviously you can really bring that stuff to life. So
Sure thing. So let me just open up the zip file here. Do you wanna? Are we looking on your screen or my screen, or how should we do this?
We're looking on your screen right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've got a folder, I guess that we just shared out. It just has some simple little illustrations that really don't have a rhyme or reason. They're just kind of like funny things to play around with and hopefully make something cool with. And so you can actually see here on this phone file I'll open up here that I like to kind of plan ahead for if I'm going to do any kind of like 3D or pseudo 3D, I guess, in After Effects. I try to plan ahead and just will like make each side of the phone, for example, so when I import it, I can just kind of move the anchor points around and rotate it as I need just to get some cool looks. So this one is just 4 layers. It's really simple. You can always separate this out into more layers to do some like more technical animation, I guess. But it's a really great starting point like this. So
yeah, and that right there, can you show the motion file there of that, like the
sure,
the movement of that phone?
Sure thing. So I'll jump in here. I'm also a big user of proxies, so I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about that as well. But yeah, so this Illustrator file we brought on into After Effects, and then like linked up the layers to a null, so it could like rotate all together. And then I actually threw a camera in here with a funny like lens length just to get like some interesting scaling right at the top here. So like when it first starts, and then in the background. In After Effects, you'll actually see that there's some kind of dots in the background here, and those were actually using turbulent noise to lumimat out the ball action effect, which I guess we'll be diving into. But yeah, so that was that file's quick workflow, and I'm sure we're going to dive into it a little bit more. But yeah, I think separating the Illustrator files, it's always, how you like to work personally. So some of my stuff might be a little bit funny. But yeah, so some of them can get pretty intense, but how I like to do this, so if you look in here, I have 28 layers, but I prepped it like this because I know I'm going to be comping each of these individual sections later in After Effects. So I'd like grab this whole hand would be its own comp, and like this sidebar here, and then it becomes just a really easy workflow. So you kind of like, at least I like to think about it in stages of work.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, it looks intimidating, all those layers, by the way.
Yeah, it's scary at first, but then you dive in and it becomes wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, do you set up your naming convention in here and everything?
So this was actually one of those files I created super quick, so I didn't name, but typically I'll actually open up another one. I do go ahead and like try to name all the layers, because it's always a terrible headache when you do get a file that's just, your guess is as good as mine, if that makes sense. So yeah, I have like chair back, chair bottom. I can pull this layer out here. And this one, I don't know how many layers are in here, but yeah, I try my best to name them when I can. And what's really nice is as you're going through naming stuff, it gives you a great opportunity to also like plan out your animation and think about how you want things to actually be separated. Which is, again, really nice.
Is your screen a little yellow by chance?
Is my screen... Oh, you know what? I think I have this thing called Flux, which is... Is that better? Yeah, so that's like, if no one knows about that plugin, and it's like a free plugin online, and it just changes your screen color, so it's better to view at night, so it doesn't hurt your eyes. Screen is brown and dark.
Good call. Is that better? We're bright, and maybe it was okay for some people where it is midnight for them. Yeah, it was easier on their eyes.
I think I saw midnight in Beijing, so that was for you, my friend.
Yeah. So awesome. Much better. So yeah, we can kind of take some of this. I'm always kind of curious if we were to animate something kind of simple. And okay. I notice even a lot of your graphics. First of all, I think this whole style, this like flat, this flat style is pretty popular right now.
Yeah, very, very popular.
But even going from being an illustrator to getting into motion, it's fun to sort of dive into maybe something simple and add some motion to it.
And that's actually another thing I'd love to kind of share is I think sometimes, at least when I used to get really hung up on my illustrations, that it would be really hard to actually get them to the stage of getting to animate them, just because I'd be spending so much time in Photoshop with like brushes or adding noise there. So if you actually look at this file here, you're gonna see it's like a really simple vector file, but what it actually turns into back in our After Effects project is gonna be it has a little extra noise in there. Whoopsie, I think I clicked the wrong one here.
Oh yeah, okay.
But yeah, so I like to kind of do my texturing after the fact. And this is actually another cool little tip. You can use something called a difference mat to actually get some really interesting luma mats. which we'll
I
take a
love
look at
that.
as
Can
well.
we and do we could we start with something like this just to keep it
Yeah.
simple? Because like, yeah, let's do that. I mean, I have this file open. We're working on that link. We'll get that to you guys.
Okay, so let me just take a quick peek and make sure I know how I made this. That's always important. But yeah, so let me take a quick look here. So I have this illustration I brought in, and I actually think there's a couple funny like layers of animation. I really try to make the most use of comps I can. So we'll like do one comp, add some animations, and then add some secondary animation over that in another comp. But I think that's a great workflow because you're always able to make some kind of nested changes. So I guess I will create a new composition or a new project.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
I just posted the link to the files, guys. So just like you can click on that, and yeah, there it's just a zip file. And I mean, again, if you do want to follow along, just like unzip that one,
Cool.
and it is known as the outside AI file.
Yeah, my naming structure is pretty phenomenal. Yeah. So
No, this is perfect. And I know some people are saying, Issei said they sometimes will also copy and paste from Illustrator to
Sure.
to After
Yeah, that's
Effects.
really good. Sometimes what happens with that when you have a lot of layers, though, is your anchor points or where the position is actually on the screen can get a little funky.
Okay.
But yeah, so like pasting the vectors into a shape layer can work sometimes, and definitely do that. But whenever I have like a lot of imports to do, I feel like copying and pasting might be a little slower. So anyway, I imported the vector file here. I'll do that one more time just so you can see the steps. Grab your outside vector file, you import it to a composition with the footage dimensions of layer size, so we get an anchor point nice and in the middle of each layer. And then you have your composition. So since these are vector files, when I'm actually creating them, I don't worry too much about the actual dimensions in Illustrator, just because I know I'm going to be able to scale this up because it can be continually rasterized. So yeah, once I have this layer, I guess the first thing, since I was kind of silly and didn't name all my layers, is just to go through and click each layer and just kind of pick some kind of name. So I'll just do this real quick. Do layer 3, I guess would be like our
Foreground or mountain or whatever.
foreground. We'll go with that. It's probably better than what I was going to do anyway. So 2 will be our, and it's also, again, I kind of like naming files just because you get a real sense of what your animation is going to turn into as you go. So it's going to be my yellow tree, if you could see that name coming.
Hopefully we're answering these questions, Creative Spirit. So yeah, it's just brought in. You brought in all the individual layers, obviously. Like I'm doing right now.
Cool. Yes, this is a back blue tree.
Outside AI. And you did you do layer size or document size?
I did layer size. Document size is going to import it with the artboard of the Illustrator comp. So that just becomes a little funky because then you can't click through your layers.
Anybody
hierarchy.
else noticing? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Anybody else noticing anything different about how your screen is laid out? Why is that? You got the timeline at the top?
Right.
Let's
So
talk about that.
when I originally got into animation, it was all in Flash. And I don't know if anyone has worked in Flash, but the timeline actually is defaulted at this top, or it used to be when I was first starting out. So I kind of just, I don't know, ported that over to After Effects, I guess. I just really like having all my information at the top. Since I'm an animator, it's like the most important thing on my screen.
That's a good point.
And then, I don't know, I can also switch it if it's making anyone too crazy.
Nah, you're good. I think we want to see how you work. We're here to see you do your magic. So you're kind of going through, you'll label each one of these things.
Yep, got my yellow sun, and I guess I got a teal sun in the background.
And just to be clear, they're not linked back to the Illustrator file, right? It's a straight up import.
So these actually are, if I went and like switched to color or anything, since you have this icon next to your layers, it means that these are like live files back to Illustrator. So if I made any changes here to like the color or maybe stroke width or something, it would actually get reflected back in After Effects. The one thing to be careful with is if you do like add something to a layer or move something around, your anchor point in After Effects might stay the same or change a little bit, so stuff can move around a little bit here. Let's see, so that's like my background, which I'm not sure I really need. Yeah, so then once you have your layers set up, for this one, I didn't really know what to animate. So I was like, man, I just need to get this on the screen. The easiest way to do this is from the bottom, and maybe with a little bit of motion it might be cool, like a rising sun. So that was my initial thought. Sun rises. Go figure. Very deep thoughts. But yeah, so once you kind of set it up, I just started to think about what I wanted to work with first. And so for this, I pretty much I actually ended up using this thing called Midas, which is like a kind of smart way to add expressions to your layers. And so for this, I basically just grabbed my position property, and then all my other layers, I linked it up with Midas, added a keyframe here, and now I should be able to just go back in time and pull this down, and it's actually going to move everything together. So what this did, you can always dive in and look at the expressions if you want to get really deep into craziness. Is you can take a look at each of these expressions and kind of learn what each of them does, but it gives you a bunch of controls just to how you can animate your layers basically. So if I go ahead and preview this animation, once it gets to the spot on the timeline, you're going to see everything moves at the same time but has a little bit of a delay. So what this is doing is like pushing my keyframes out to all my other properties, or all my other position properties for the other layers. So I'm able to get like this kind of nice little ripple delay. And from there, I'm able to go and like work with the delay and change it and kind of pick how I want to animate a little bit more. So since I now have like the up motion for my scene.
Yeah, we do have that up motion, but this is interesting. So you the Midas. Let's talk about this.
Sure.
Because I just looked in After Effects. I'm like, what is this Midas thing?
Oh, yes. Go see. So Midas is actually a thing I worked on with my really good friend Koen Schmitz, who's a developer from the Netherlands actually. And yeah, it became like our baby for a while. For a long time, it was just like Midas was kind of a tool I used for my own personal projects, and then Koen and I just worked on it for a super long time and ended up making it into kind of like this full tool that can do a lot of cool things. And if anyone's interested, you can go check out actually a free trial too at my website, which is Mt.Mograph.com, or you can also buy it if you really want to. But I recommend just checking out a trial and just seeing if you like it first. Yeah, and hopefully you can play around with the free vector files from today and like the trial and just follow along with this, because I think there's actually a lot of worth to the tool for workflow wise. Because sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, it's really good. So so yeah, obviously there's a link there, but can you just kind of twirl down and show us what Midas added, by the way?
Sure.
Just
so
like the expression, or
sure, yes.
I want to kind of peek under the hood and see.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. So if you if you select your layers and you double press E on your keyboard, it's actually going to show you all the layers that have had expressions added to them. So as you can see here, from our one little like click of position to all the layers, it added a ton of expressions to a ton of different properties, as well as like these pseudo effect controls to each of the layers. So if you want to dive into and like look at how these expressions actually work, I'm just gonna go and paste this into another little program so we can actually take a look at the text a little easier here. Beautify it. You can dive in and see that it's kind of some complex expressions, but might be a really great like kind of learning tool for some people.
And that's awesome. So actually, and can we even rewind and just show, I think a good way to kind of see the value of this is doing it without it.
Okay,
so
sure.
Could you undo that?
Yeah.
And then just do the animation, just like say with keyframe, or however you would do it with keyframes.
Sure. Yeah.
And in case people don't have Midas or don't want to, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. It's definitely gonna be a little slower like that, but that's all right, and it'll give us a good chance to work with our keyframes. So I'm gonna go forward in time here, and I basically am gonna select all my layers, and since we're gonna have a very similar position movement to all of the layers, you can just start by kind of clicking and holding your mouse and just going on all of the stopwatches will add keyframes all at the same time, which is kind of nice. You can just go back in time and then just pull everything down at once. Again, we're not really going to worry about where it is in the comp because we'll be continually rasterizing.
How did you bring up position, just the position for everything?
So that's actually a hotkey, or short button or short key. I'm losing my words here.
Shortcut.
And you can just press P on the keyboard to pop up position. If you hold Shift, you can actually pull up other hotkeys or properties. So you can press like R for rotation, T for opacity, S for scale. And it's just like not all of the properties are gonna
I didn't know that about the Shift key.
You didn't?
So the Shift key will add those other properties based on the shortcut.
And that can also work if you're like already maybe viewing at some other property that doesn't have a hotkey. And these are only position, scale, rotation because they're After Effects Illustrator files. But if you like converted this file to a vector real quick, you're going to see you have like a lot more properties in your layer. So sometimes if you're working with like a path, you can also press U on your keyboard to see any properties that have been modified.
Love hitting U.
Yeah, and then you can hold shift and like bring up your scale, rotation, whatever else you might want. But yeah, I really like those shortcuts. Anytime you can like get a smaller view of what you're actually working on is always like the right choice.
And as you see, as you dive into After Effects, everything gets small.
Yes.
You know,
indeed.
you're just like fighting for screen real estate. You know?
Always, especially on my little 13-inch MacBook. But yeah, so you add some position keyframes to all of your layers here. Just go back in time a little bit, and you're going to be able to just pull down all of the layers at once because we want that kind of like rising sun effect. So if I go and preview this, you're going to see everything is moving up all at the same time because all of our keyframes on our timeline are hitting at the same time. So if you wanted to stagger these, you could kind of grab your layers or your keys and just kind of move those over just like that. Actually, what we could do, there's a couple ways you could actually like get this kind of ripply effect. You could do it with the individual keyframes and just kind of stagger them out.
Which is good, because this is like the most intuitive way, I think, just like the most, I don't know, basic way. This is traditionally how you'd work, is manipulating keyframes like we're doing now.
Yep, and so this is like a really wonderful way to like get a deep dive and look into animation. But what does happen in a production environment or for commercial work is you get changes a lot. So the more keyframes you have, potentially the more work you have to do in order to get your animation revised, I guess I should say. But so here we go. We got this kind of staggered effect, and I'm staggering it from the bottom keyframe hitting first, and you see that's like the back of these keys here. So you have this little little ripple effect going, and we're gonna now like kind of think of what objects we want to bring up first and which keyframes we want to hit first. So
that's good. Oh, Shift Alt, is this true, Julian? Shift plus Alt property will add a keyframe without pressing the clock icon. So Shift Alt will add a keyframe.
Let's see, Shift.
We want to learn stuff too, guys. We want to learn from you.
I'm not getting that here.
Or I don't know if
see.
Shift Alt click or whatever.
Shift Alt click.
I don't know. I don't know what exactly is going on. It is all good. Hello. But this is good. So we've had plenty of comments. It's fun because we have people from a sort of like all different sort of experience levels.
Sure.
We have some people wanting to like know how to do the basic keyframe stuff, and then another person was like asking for expressions. I think since we are starting out on day one, it's nice to start with the fundamentals, and it's nice to even zoom in on that. Can you what if you made that panel larger? Is there any shortcut key you can hit? Just to show
so you can actually do the tilde key if you need to maximize any of the highlighted panels you're on. So if you click the different panels, you're going to see you get your little blue outline indicating that's the active one, and then the tilde key is in that top left under your escape button, and if you click that, that'll maximize your screen, which is great if you just want to like dive in a little bit more into whatever you're looking at.
This is really good. So it's always interesting because like you have these fundamentals that you want to do. We're setting up our screen correctly, everything's looking good. You've staggered stuff, and then you realize that you end up doing this a lot. Somebody just mentioned Rift. Have you heard of Rift?
Yeah, I have heard of Rift. Rift works with the layers actually like this. I believe, and they
will it stagger them out that way? Like
yeah, so basically how I moved my keyframes, you could with like a tool like Rift or any of these kind of sequencing tools, it'll like basically automatically kind of push your layers so you don't actually have to move the keyframes. Another nice little trick you can actually do is if you trimmed all your layers, I think you can do Option forward bracket, and then you can actually right click and go down to Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers, and it's gonna kind of stagger them for you already, and then I like re-drag them out. That's kind of another.
Do that again, by the way, because I think that was really awesome.
Yeah, so this was actually what I used to do a lot more.
So you trimmed it up by holding down Option and then
doing the forward. I think this is forward or back
the
bracket?
closing
this bracket.
Like it's Option.
Yeah, and so there's this tool. It's in your Keyframe Assistant. If you right-click your layers and you go down to Keyframe Assistant, it's called Sequence Layers. So you can do like an overlap of the layers. But the reason I trimmed it is because it'll basically sequence your layers out, and then while it's sequencing your layers out, your keyframes automatically kind of get pushed with the layers. But yeah, so then you're just gonna say sequence, okay, and then I'm gonna like re-pull out my layer ends.
And you have them all selected, so that's why it does them all at the same time.
Yeah, and I can kind of pull these out again too. But yeah, so then you have like this kind of staggered effect.
It's too staggered though, right?
Yeah, this one is a bit staggered. I'll actually show you another little hotkey you can do. I'm going to switch the background just to white so we can kind of see a little bit better.
Okay.
You can also grab all your keyframes, hold Option, and grab either the firstmost keyframe or the lastmost keyframe, and just drag them in to like condense that section of keyframes.
And that was holding on the Option key?
Yeah, holding down Alt or Option.
Okay.
It's a nice way to kind of,
and it gives you this like rubber band effect, compresses those all those keyframes.
Yeah, which is a really kind of handy way just to if you do like this kind of sequence thing and you're not getting the right timing, you can kind of tweak things back so it comes up quicker, or however you want to work with it.
Are you guys writing this down? Because this is all really good stuff. These shortcuts. It's like taking the fundamentals and making it easy amongst multiple layers.
Actually, I'll tell you, one of the best things I ever did to learn animation was I actually found online the After Effects shortcuts, like PDF, and I made note cards for every single one, and it sounds nerdy, and I swear, I guess I am a nerd, but just like learning what kind of, how you can save time in your workflow and just being aware of all the shortcuts there are. It was like, it totally changed how I used the program. It also got me way more familiar with After Effects because I kind of knew every little module in it, or a lot of them. I don't know if I know everything.
And, honestly, I think that would be a great video for you to do someday is like, these are the shortcuts that I can't like live without.
Oh, honestly, man, there's too many. I might be like showing you the whole keyboard.
But all the shortcuts you just said, like, really essential. Just so you know, there's a keyboard shortcut reference guide that you can in the help menu.
Yeah.
And there are the general ones, but anyways, it'll just be kind of fun to see.
Even just the general ones are awesome to know. There's so many sneaky ones. I mean, I think there's like another one that's really nice is Shift Command D, and you can split your layer at the current time.
Shift Command D.
Another nice one. But yeah, what do you think we should jump into here, or where should I be?
Oh yeah,
no, I
think you're doing great. I think this is invaluable. Everything you've just talked about is all of these like shortcuts with. I mean, this is stuff you've known for a while, but this might be new to a lot of people. So that's why I'm so glad you're covering this. Sure. It looks like you converted some of those keyframes to. Or there's some easing on them.
Yes, so you can do F9 on the keyboard, and then you can adjust your easing a little bit more in here. You can actually go on over to your speed graph. If you have
You're probably blowing people's minds right now. And actually, let me just check and see if there are any questions, because there's a lot coming through.
Okay.
Because look at how you just changed it. People are like, whoa, this is different.
Sorry. Oh, another.
You're good.
I got another quick little tip. If you hold Option and scroll your mouse, you can actually like scale up and down horizontally on your timeline. So you can actually hold Shift and scroll to like scroll your timeline, and hold Option to like zoom in and out of your timeline where your mouse is.
Yeah, just using your mouse wheel.
Yeah.
Or your
save those mouse clicks.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
No, awesome. Let me just double check. Yes, so this animation at this point could be created in Adobe Animate, and I'm glad you brought that up, because right now, like, yes, we can jump in and create this in Adobe Animate. It's like no different. Yeah, we could talk about that all day long, the differences. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't use video footage or any of that stuff in here, but so far, obviously, your final output here is going to be video.
Yeah, exactly. Animate can export to like the SVG kind of file, or not SVG, like the
SWF.
Yeah.
So, SWF HTML, by the way, it's like a lot of just think of Adobe Animate as being platform agnostic. It's going to output again to SVG, HTML, SWF, and whatever else is next, right? So it's sort of extensible in that way.
Yeah, and I think After Effects gives you like a little bit deeper ability to dive into things or change.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, you want to meet Matt? Well, if you live here in the Bay Area and you're reasonable, like, I don't know. I'm not going to say everybody can come to the studio, but he's in San Francisco right now. You might run into him on the street.
Yeah. Catch me around town.
So this is interesting. That? So some people want to look at like sort of the speed graph. And yeah, but let's kind of you added your easing just by what did you click on? You used a shortcut key.
Yeah, you can do F9 on the keyboard. Actually,
but can you right click on one of those keyframes just so everybody can kind of see how to get to go down to the so that's like, what type of easing did you add to it?
This is just the easy ease. So your basic, you can actually see the little shortcut on the side here. F9 for easy ease, Shift F9 for easy ease in only, and easy E out easy ease out is Shift Command F9, I think. Sorry, that's a little small to see. I actually got a nice little thing if we're talking about position keyframes and people want to know anything more about the speed graph. I'll actually show you a really nice little trick if I can, if that's fun. If we just create a new composition here and create a circle, a square, anything you want on the screen, I can kind of show you. I'm going to create this black circle. So this was something I only have recently started doing, but when you're working with your multi-dimensional properties, and you can center up the anchor point real quick. But yeah, so if you're working with multi-dimensional properties like position or scale, well, strictly position in this example, since it's multi-dimensional, you don't get the same access to your easing types like in your speed graph. If you click this little toggle here, you can also do G for the pen tool and whoops. Sorry. Let's see. So you can bring up your speed, your value graph, and so if we switch over to our value graph here, you're going to see we actually have our X and our Y properties, but we don't have Bezier handles for them. So whenever we change our actual easing, we're going to be affecting both properties like together.
Like they're tied together, yeah.
Yeah, but see, what's really great with After Effects, it does give you the ability to actually separate your dimensions, which gives you a whole new way to kind of work with your positions. So if you right-click and you go down to Separate Dimensions, you're going to see we now have a separate X and a Y property.
How did you get to that again?
So you can just right-click your property.
Separate dimensions.
Yep. Yeah, and so then
we're like multi-dimensional now.
Yeah, totally. And what's really nice about having these separate dimensions is you're actually able to go in and now you can actually have like curves and easing and actually affect like your values in a totally different way. You're actually going to see if I hold Option and change this Bezier point, you're going to see actually on our time or our composition panel down here, you're going to see we're actually getting that bend. So I really like separating my dimensions. You can also press G for the pen tool, hold Option and click your Bezier point or your point, and you can pull it out. But this just gives you a really a visual way to work independently with each of your position properties, I guess. That's really like separating dimensions.
Yeah, and I like this is still like a simple example, but we're getting into the details of really adding this sort of the fine-tuning, just a simple animation.
Yeah, well, it's like one of those things, like probably the hardest animation to actually do is like a bouncing ball that looks like it has a real impact. And so, I mean, if we can take a little segue here, we can kind of jump into that if you want to see how to make a perfect bouncing ball.
I mean, I don't know. I'm interested. I don't know if it sounds too basic for everyone, but yeah. I like the idea of understanding how to truly manipulate motion.
Sure.
You guys want to see a bouncing ball? I don't have a ball here.
Yeah. Or we can go back to the actual files or whatever.
Like, how could you make this bend? I mean, obviously it's going to be start slow, end fast. Or wait, it's gonna once it hits, it's gonna go fast and then slow down.
Yep. In like the arc, and then kind of pick up speed and hit again.
Pick up speed again, and then hit, and then it's gonna.
Yeah, and so especially when you're bouncing a ball like in X. In the X, I'll actually just show you. It's so hard to explain. I'm like using my hands like a crazy person. Do it now. So yeah.
Wrath is like, do it, just do it. Craig's like, do it. Rizal's like, do it.
So I separated
Bounce that ball.
So I separated my dimensions. I'm just gonna pull the circle on over to the side here. I'll go back and I'll pull it over. So I'm actually gonna keep my X properties linear, and the reason is because I know this ball is gonna be moving, and we do want just this linear motion, which might seem a little silly. I'm actually gonna also, you can set your work area to something and trim comp to the work area if you right click, which is another great way to kind of pick what you're actually looking at.
You with the pro tips. Of course you're a pro. Like these little things that I'm like, I never do that. I always go to the properties panel and change it that way.
Yeah, so now we have our movement on the X dimension, and we want to do a little bit of work with the Y dimension. So I'm going to lift it up, and you're going to see since we have these separate dimensions, I'm actually able to also move my X position with my Y position, as odd as that sounds. So I'm going to go forward in time a little bit and just pull my Y position down, and you're going to see how it's actually affecting our like position.
Yeah.
And I'll go up, I'll add another little bounce here, and then I'll kind of end it and go back down. about this. So we have our basic movement, and you're gonna see like if you're looking at, we have like these very straight lines, which is obviously not gonna be a good looking animation. This is going to not look like
done.
Yeah, perfect.
Nailed
it.
it.
I'm all set, and I'm out. No. But what we want to do is go in, look at the speed graph, and this is why it's really nice to separate dimensions. If you go and you look at your speed graph here, you can press G on your keyboard and hold Option, and you can just kind of pull out your Bezier
Option
handles.
G gives you the Bezier.
Yep, and so this is, you can actually see exactly how it's affecting our motion as well here. I'm going to make sure. And you can start to kind of design what you want this to look like in a kind of different way. But since you are hitting the ground, you want this to be a strong ease. I'm just kind of babbling about this as I'm doing it. But you can start kind of tweaking your motion. Kind of nice. So we'll see how this looks. I might need to do a little bit more. But you're going to see that like that first impact really has some weight to it. And kind of pull this out. So you're going to see like you have this really a better bouncing ball, I should say. It's not perfect. And then you can go back and use that tip we talked about a second ago where you can hold Option and kind of retime your whole section if you want to see what's going on.
Love it.
But yeah, it's just like separating their dimensions just gives you a kind of different approach to looking at what you're trying to animate.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And especially when, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and it makes it easier because you're only dealing with the Y position, which is probably the most important thing right now. Once you separate those out and open up your motion controls. Yeah, there we go. It's interesting. This is a reverse of how the animation actually looks. Looks like it's mirrored, like flipped.
That's kind of funny how that works. So I guess if you do a handstand, you can figure out your perfect animation.
It's just it kind of is a mind bend, but
yeah. I mean, it's a very like visual way. Like it's kind of one of those things. Like it's almost nice to see the parity between both what you're doing on the speed graph and what you're actually creating in your composition. Because if it's like linked up, it doesn't really make sense in the same way. So that's like the little bouncing ball. That is kind of a nice way to just start to think about using your dimensions anyway.
Dare is asking if you work in 60 frames per second and then export to 30, or what is your general workflow?
So what's really kind of my typical stuff with animation, at least in After Effects, is it's pretty flexible in terms of what your comp rates are. If you do Command K, you can bring up your composition settings here, and I guess I was working at 24 for this. But I think I typically work at 30 and then kind of whatever the project needs. I mean, most clients would ask for 24 or 30.
Okay.
Is pretty much an industry standard.
Cool.
Yeah.
Easy enough. So yeah, this is all right, cool. We have that. We can get to the template later. And so again, you're going to be with us for 3 days.
Indeed.
Same time, same place, and this is good. So that was good. We separated out the motion. We learned how to do these fine-tune sort of animations with this easing, which is hugely important. Because even looking at your little, I'll just call it our little sizzle reel or a demo reel, a lot of that were simple graphics, maybe made in Illustrator, but adding that. Like, I know I want to also get into like textures and stuff like that and changing the look of this.
Actually,
whenever, but
that might be kind of for anyone who is watching now, it might be a kind of fun thing to see. If you go and you create a new adjustment layer, so just right click not on a layer here, go to new and add an adjustment layer to your timeline and go to your effects and presets. There's actually this tool. I really like exploring all the effects because there's so many that are in After Effects, but are like...
And zoom in on... Oh, there you go. And feel free to zoom in.
Sure.
Oh, is that better, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's what I like.
Right.
Oh, glorious.
So if we zoom in here, you're going to see like effects and presets. Typically, this is under your keying effect, and it's a color difference key. So as I was like kind of going through this... I don't know, just one random day I was like kind of exploring, I realized like your output here could actually be used as a lumamat. Which is like your black and white values, similar to how an alpha matte works. But you have to actually switch something, so you switch your view actually to this corrected view, and you're gonna see we now have like these tiny little like gray sections, black sections, and you can go and just start like, you don't even really need to know what each of these property does. Honestly, since we're just going for like this black and white contrasted value, so we'll go and just kind of tweak it. But once you have this kind of these values here, I actually keep that layer. I'll zoom back out here. So that is my, actually, so we do want this adjustment layer. I actually kind of lied here. We want,
you need it as a separate comp?
yeah, you do, because you need 2 copies of it. So I'm just going to take my outside comp, and I'm just going to drag this down onto the comp icon here, and it's going to nest that composition with the same composition settings into another comp.
Cool.
So I'll paste my adjustment layer that we just did in here, and actually copy this color difference key back onto my composition here, so we can kind of see this contrasted value. So what's different about using like this color difference key is you get like this really noisy kind of outline sometimes, and noise and texture is like a really popular thing right now. So it's kind of nice to have that digital noise or artifacts in there. So next I went and I just imported a texture. I actually have a folder I've kind of collected over the years from this free website called lostandtaken.com. This person, I'm not sure who it is. It's a really nice kind of website. He puts up all these like free textures, and you can just go download them, drop it into your composition here. Kind of another little hotkey or a couple hotkeys is Shift, Option, Command, G or H. So G is going to scale it to the width of your composition, and G is going to scale it to the height of your composition, and H is going to scale it to the width of your composition.
Oh.
Which is kind of funny.
Shift, Option, Command, so pretty much all the keys.
Yeah, press all the keys on the key.
H for height, G, and then you said G for, did you say you said G for sort of the width?
Yeah, so Shift, Option, Command, G is going to be the height. As you can see, it kind of fits the...
G is for height.
And H is for width. Which,
okay, H is...
You just reverse what you're
weird.
thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so now you can go to your outside layer and actually go to your track mat here and switch it to a Luma mat. And so what this is going to do is like read out our values. Obviously, I had kind of a funny little background here. I'll scale this up real quick. Actually, another great opportunity for our hotkeys, Shift, Option, Command, G. It's going to automatically scale it up to our comp. And so I have this noise, and when I zoom in here, you're actually going to see our texture from our paper is now being read out at like different opacities actually within this kind of textured space. So I'm going to duplicate the layer, Shift or Command D on your keyboard, drag it down, do Shift Command E to remove all the effects on the layer, and then I can go to my outside layer with the color difference key, hold Shift and plus, and I can toggle through the different transfer modes to see how this texture can get taken onto my animation. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting because even like those little lines that were noisy in our color difference key have now been able to transfer our texture over.
Yeah, did you guys see that? Slow clap.
Slow clap, very slow clap. But yeah.
No, but I want everybody to like take a second for this all to think in, because you move fast, buddy.
I try, man. Hey, gotta.
Somebody is just like, just let Matt do his thing. Just light it up, Matt. You just lit it up.
Yeah, but so one of the other really nice things about this texture workflow using like a color difference key, and I recommend just exploring all the effects basically and just seeing what works, is you're actually able to like go and change these values and actually change how the like your Luma mat basically in like this live way and really see how your texture is being affected. You can also use like the little eyedropper tool and actually grab a color to like start solo. I mean, you just have to play around and see what you like.
Yeah, it's all about playing around with it, and that's all because of your layer mode essentially as well is set to multiply.
Yep. And yeah, so it's really nice. I love just going through the modes because oftentimes you just stumble on something that looks really interesting. Like, I mean, this is a color scheme I might not have worked with, but at the same time is kind of nice. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
This is obviously something you might add. You'd add this sort of toward the end of your process.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, again, going back to like our workflow of I really like to start really simple. So you make like your simple illustration with a couple layers. You bring it into After Effects, you start playing around with the motion, and once you have like your motion kind of finalized, because that's the meat of the project, you go and you like do what I would call styling it. So like taking it to the next level and just adding a little bit of attitude or noise. Attitude, that sounds like a shampoo commercial or something.
That's good. Yeah, that's that. I mean, that's what you're at. You get a little style, like something unique, starting with flat graphics, and it's an entirely different look.
So another thing we can kind of do, even before our transfer mode, I'm actually going to add just a quick fill to this background. I guess I could actually hide the background. And we're actually going to just take a quick look at like the layer styles, which is something I'm a huge fan of. You can right-click your layer, go down to Layer Styles, and actually add like some effects that work in a little bit of a different way. So I'm going to add the inner shadow, and we're going to get this inner shadow look. It almost looks like a cutout paper. So I've added this. You can like grab all your layers and just do Command V to paste it on everything at once. And so I've added this in the past, and I was like, man, like inner shadow, it's not that cool. But what's really nice is you can add this another little thing called noise. So if we zoom in here, I'll actually switch this to like full so we can kind of really see. This is our inner shadow we have going. So I can like turn up my distance first, and then I can also go down to the bottom here and start turning on noise and turning on the size, and you can start to get like a kind of secondary texture in here. And then again, you have like all these different modes you can do, colors you can add, all kinds of things you can switch. And it's one of those things like however you want to use the tools, you generally can. Just gotta get like a little crazy. So now I have
I like that.
This kind of red look. I'll just grab all my layers and do Command V to paste it all on there at once. So now I have like this burning field look. I can go back to my outside too, and you're gonna see I have
slow clap. Sorry.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, but you can just like go off into crazy land, and you know this is probably something I wouldn't.
Is this crazy land?
This might be crazy land. The sun is rising in crazy land. But yeah, I mean it's one of those things like.
Inner shadow, adding noise to it, changing the layer mode, or the mode, how it interacts with it.
And what's really nice about going through like that explorative process is like, you know, I'm starting with this kind of 3-color or 4-color little design, and I gotta say I kind of like what this is. And this is something I could have spent a ton of time in Photoshop, like really diving into and styling.
Even doing that in Illustrator would take a while. So wow.
Yeah, so that's just kind of funny. And that's that little thing there.
No, I'll just take a second for it all to sink in. I'm just going to take a second to enjoy this. Hit that tilde key. I don't know if it's selected.
Yeah, it's just kind of an interesting little look. Again, I
love that. And you just kind of knock this out. Like, okay. And inner shadow is one of those things. You're right. Like, I'm like, when am I ever going to use? I've never used inner shadow. Even in Photoshop, I just don't use it. But in this case, with flat graphics,
you're like, whoa.
It adds a little bit of dimension to it while adding a texture as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it rounds out those trees, rounds out that sun back there.
And the great thing about layer styles is you can actually, I'll go press tilde again, you can actually get even kind of like deeper into them if you want. You could start adding layer styles to your comp. So before I have this styled comp, I could right click this, go to layer styles, and actually add like an outside stroke or something.
Okay.
And that's going to affect like everything as a group. So maybe again, this isn't the look we're really going for in this example.
It looks like it's kind of affecting the inside of it.
Oh, well, see, again, randomly click something and not bad. No, we can go to outside, and yeah, it might be overlapping a little bit. But yeah, when you go back to your transfer mode, then all of a sudden you have a totally different look. But yeah, layer styles are just awesome. Really fun stuff to work with and play around with.
Yeah, layer styles, in combination with your, Luma matte, essentially?
Yep, Luma matte. And another thing you can do like a Luma inverted matte for some kind of different look as well, which is going to take the opposite values you have.
And the nice thing is like, yeah, we can play with this stuff later. That's like dealing with the look. We can dig into that composition, play with the motion, kind of do both at the same time or whatever. It's like it's all obviously linked together.
I might have done this kind of stupid, actually. I would want it like this. Oh wait, no, I did do this right. Maybe I didn't. Well, either way, it turned out looking all right. But one of the things I actually think I meant to do was do a Luma matte on my. Yeah, I kind of did that backwards. I meant to put the Luma matte onto my paper texture to read the color difference key from my comp. So I actually had that backwards, but it kind of worked out. I guess. So yeah, this is what I actually meant to do the first time. And then you can hold shift and go through and that's actually what I meant to do. The first time was just a joke, a little tease.
No, I love it, man. That's awesome. Yeah, some people are like, so big shout out Bar of Lunch, apparently. Really enjoyed your tutorials and wants to say thank you.
Well, thank you, Bar of Lunch.
Yeah, and again, it's really simple, as Cedric says, just loves the style, and I do. I feel like you went through there's at least 3 or 4 different styles that you went through that I'm like, yes.
Yeah, and this is
these are all those layer modes, right? That's essentially.
Yeah. So this is, I think, a color burn, but yeah, this is also great for if you have like an art director or something you're working with. You can just kind of like I mean, you could get them like 15 different looks just by going through your transfer modes and say, is this work? Does this work? Does this work? And, you know, wind up on something cool you didn't expect, which is like half the reason animation is so fun.
Yeah. So if you guys have questions, feel free to can you adjust those keyframes on the comp window? Adjust those keyframes on the comp window.
Sure.
I don't think do you have any in there?
I have some in here that we were kind of just talking, so they're not nice keyframes. They're just kind of all over the place at the moment. Then we kind of got sidetracked there, but yeah. Oops. Sorry.
I know. For me, the inner shadow stuff is cool. I like also even just kind of going back to your sizzle reel or whatever, when you are moving those textures inside of a shape.
Sure.
Created a nice look. I don't know if this is really set up to do that, but
yeah, I mean, we could probably figure something out. So again, you just have already have your texture being transferred, so you can go on over to your position, and you could add something like a wiggle expression, or which is just gonna be wiggle, like whatever. And so you just do the amount of times per second you want, and then let me zoom in here. Sorry. If you have never used the wiggle expression, it's just like the amount of times per second, I believe, you want to wiggle, and then the value that you want to wiggle of.
Is that the value? Is that the distance or the x and y?
So
or?
200 is going to be x and y,
Okay.
And it's going to look a little crazy, but you're going to see we now have added like some secondary movement to our texture. Again, like the wiggle, maybe not the right move right there, just a little expression. You could also just like, you know, keyframe your position to move or rotation or whatever you want, but more motion is better motion, maybe. So yeah, it's kind of a funky little animation right now. It doesn't look great.
Yeah,
but
no, and it's all good. Actually, can you show your like sizzle reel again?
Sure.
And I'm just thinking of the example that I think it was more reddish and it was squares and there were different textures moving at different paces. That's obviously like definitely more of a setup, but nonetheless.
Yeah, so in this, you're going to see, so those techniques we kind of just went over, you're actually going to probably see it in just about every one of these. You guys have now figured out my master style. But yeah, I use this trick for pretty much everything. Just anytime you can add these layer styles in there.
Wow, we're seeing it now. I'm starting to see everything you just talked about in this. So I'm sorry, we're going to roll through
sure.
this.
I can actually go through like just page down, but you're going to see.
We'll talk about that 3D stuff later, guys.
Yeah, so this one just stayed kind of straight vector 2D animation. This one kind of started to use our color difference key as the transfer mode. This one didn't even have the inner shadow layer style.
Oh yeah.
And then if I go forward a little bit more here, this one
I see a little texture in there.
Yeah, so I can zoom in maybe more here, and you're gonna see we have like a little tiny texture all over everything. We have like our little outside stroke we went over, and so what you can actually see in this stroke is, since it's a nested composition, it's affecting this whole character as like a unit. So the stroke actually kind of goes across everything. In a way that would be very hard to actually animate or build.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me zoom out here. Make use of those hotkeys. So shift and page down if you want to go through your timeline just a couple frames. So here's that example you're talking about. Again, it's like you can, now that we talked about it, you can really see you have like your texture in the background that moves a little bit. You have your inner shadow here. I actually think this one, I double nested my comps so I could get kind of like, you know how like your typical lighting setup would have like a key light and another light. So I kind of did, like two layer styles.
Okay, so like maybe two inner shadows coming from different directions.
Two inner shadows coming from different directions in different comps, because you can't have two inner shadows on one layer.
I wish you could. That's a feature request. Let's write that down.
Yeah. So I can just go through here a little bit more, and some of them just like get kind of crazy looking if you go into like
we will be talking
frames.
About 3D. I think we do need to get into something like this
later. It's easier than you would expect, actually.
Somebody is so we kind of did. So you already kind of talked about. It wasn't a nested stroke, as April Diamond suggests. That wasn't a nested stroke, was it? It was a stroke on a composition.
Stroke on a composition. Yep.
Okay. And so under the hood on the bouncing ball. Bouncing ball is used everywhere. You would think we could talk more about that. I know somebody was curious about wiggle, and I'm noticing there's lots of people sort of watching that are. We cover the a full range of sort of experience. People that want to dive deep into the stuff. Some people that are new to say wiggle, for instance. Are there any other expressions that you can add that are easy, or can you kind of talk a little bit more about that? Maybe you do it on the texture, or like kind of can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, that'd be great. So I guess I will.
And Kevin will answer your question too here in a bit.
All right, so if I create a new composition here, I'll show you probably one of my most used expressions. This is actually just a simple expression. If you hold Option and you click the little stopwatch next to any property you're looking at, you can click it and you just do like time times some number, and this is just going to take the current value you're at in your timeline and just give you a little animation. So this is going to be like a constant perpetual movement, because as my timeline is being...
What's the 150?
So 150 is just like my multiplier. I could switch this value to something like 2.
Like how's it rotating?
So that's because I took... It's basically you're giving your expression an input. I have rotation starts at 0. So I'm basically holding Option and I'm clicking it, and I'm going to call time. So saying like, let me zoom in.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Okay, I didn't see your center point was moved.
Yeah. I'm like doing the wrong one there. Yeah, so if you zoom in here, you can just really nice expression for a ton of stuff is just times some number that you throw in there.
And this is perfect. Any sort of perpetual animation that you want, perfect for these expressions.
Yeah, and one of probably my other biggest use for this is if I add something like turbulent displace, which is probably the one I use on everything, and you can actually do some really cool stuff with this, is if you add onto your evolution this time expression, so time times 160 I guess I'll do here, you're gonna now get like
bloop, bloop, bloop,
yeah, a little...
No way, that's not After Effects.
Maybe it is After Effects. Yeah. But that's really nice just to not have to add keyframes sometimes. So evolution is a wonderful property to add the time expression to.
That is dope. That's really cool, man. So you want something trippy, do that. But I love just the use of expressions, obviously, like in this perpetual fashion. You did that in 2 seconds, huh?
Yeah,
that's worth what you paid for admission, guys, huh?
There you go. So
which was free.
Worth it.
Come on, guys. I'm like, I just want to sit here and absorb this. Just take it all in.
Exactly.
What was the key for expression? You're holding down Option, click.
Yep. So if you toggle down your properties, you could do like P. If you hold Shift, you can do PRS or P for position, R and S, and you can pop up your position, scale, and rotation. Some shortcuts we talked about before. If you hold Option and you click your scale, you're gonna see we now have this little box we can type into. And if you want to dive into expression creation, you can actually click this little arrow and start like looking at how to go about building expressions.
How did you learn about expressions? Like, how did you go
I
about
learn
learning?
about expressions? Well, I had to nerd out for a while there. I found the scripting guide online. It was After Effects scripting guide, I think 6.5 was like the PDF I found online, and I just kind of read through that, didn't make sense of it for a long time, kept hammering at it, and then finally it got in my stupid brain, and I was like, I get it, I get expressions.
And that's what happens. I think you as a visual or motion designer, but just a visual designer, making that jump into expressions or any sort of language is kind of tricky. It's like it's using this different part of your brain that's kind of hurts a little.
Yeah, it hurts, but honestly, like just learning expressions, you can find out how to maximize your own workflow in terms of just like building little tools for yourself. Like I this is my laptop. I don't have my main workstation, but I have like this little script I made that was just like it's called like utility or something, and it just probably has like 20 little things that I just like having. I think one of them just like renames my adjustment layers to the effect that has it on the layer. But it's like anytime you can just like make things a little bit faster, easier for you. Yeah, it's totally worth just learning a couple expressions and scripting.
Yeah, man, I love it. And have you done any videos on expressions?
Definitely.
So check those out. Mt.Mograph on YouTube. Stick around here all day, by the way.
Yeah.
Full of tips.
I really think though that like for expressions and coding, the best thing you can do is just kind of dive in it to yourself and just see how the code is working. Like following along gets you so far, but it's like you really want to understand with code what it's doing. So I recommend doing like getting into that.
Yeah. No, that's good. And finding out kind of what you want to learn. And you made a really clear example. Like, let's take an object and we want it to rotate over. And I think that's a good indicator to dive into expressions anytime you're doing something over and over. If you're copying and pasting keyframes, think about how you can turn that into an expression.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, so another kind of fun thing you can actually do with this turbulent displace, if you create a new composition, this is kind of another funny little one. It might look cool, this might look terrible. If you just draw some colors on the screen, don't press caps lock. You just want to add any kind of color here, and then we're going to throw that turbulent displace over the top of this in a couple weird ways, and we can hopefully get something that looks kind of crazy. But yeah, so I'm just adding whatever colors.
We're gonna get trippy.
Here.
We're gonna get trippy up in here. Like, what was in this drink?
Yeah,
What are we having?
Guinness,
What is that? And that's vodka.
Yeah, exactly. But
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna grab my turbulent displace, go to my comp 18 onto my adjustment layer, and just paste it here. You're gonna see we have those same expressions we already added, which is just gonna be our time expression onto our evolution. So you hold Option, you click your little evolution stopwatch, add the time expression, and you're gonna see we have that little bit of movement kind of pushed out to our layers underneath. But again, I'm really a huge person into diving into each of the modules or tools way deeper than just what you first see. So for example, with turbulent displace, you have all these other kind of displacement modes. So you can go to something like a vertical displace, and you can turn up your amount, and you can turn down your size, and you can start to get kind of this chalky effect, for example, if you zoom in here. Again, this is if you were styling, but what's really nice, if you kind of scale this up, you duplicate this layer and you switch the next one to horizontal, you're not going to have these two kind of weird transfers or displacements happening at the same time. You could duplicate this again and actually switch this back to your normal turbulent, and then kind of scale this up. But yeah, you can start to just get the really crazy kind of artwork and designs in here.
It's looking beautiful, actually.
Thank you very much. But I guess
zooming in there is kind of cool.
Yeah, you would want to maybe turn your size up. But yeah, playing around with this, you can just start to see from really not even adding a single keyframe or really not doing much of anything, you can kind of just go off into some crazy place.
Yeah. No, I love it. And this might be an example of I'm not sure where I would use this.
No, totally.
But when you need it, you're this is going to save my life because I need to create some sort of ripple weird thing or whatever.
Yeah, this is a super weird example. It's really turbulent displace is just probably the easiest example of the time expression just to see. So, we can totally get back on track. Sorry for the sidetrack, everyone.
No, that was good. And somebody asked about expressions. Somebody actually asked about how you, and I can go back to that comment of how do you start out? Do you start out storyboarding, or how do you kind of map? What is your process? Because you were given this file. Yeah. And what's a typical example? So a big client, let's just say Nike, for instance. Okay. Just randomly picking a company.
Okay.
They come in, here's a graphic. What do they say? Animate it?
So it depends on how your project is coming in. Sometimes you work with Illustrator, sometimes you get hired to create the whole project from start to finish. So it really depends on your endpoint. If you're gonna be a total freelancer and do everything yourself, and you want to do the illustration, I think it's really nice to start actually non-digitally. I have a little notebook. I think I actually brought, but I don't have with me, and no one actually wants to see that. But yeah, I have a notebook that I'll just do all kinds of little sketches in, and it's just a really loose way to explore. And it's kind of nice that you don't have a Command Z to just immediately rewind. So you can just kind of go through all these iterations, make some messes, and then I'll go take a picture of that, put it into Illustrator, and then try to simplify it or whatever the style is. But yeah, I think I typically
Are you storyboarding in your sketchbook, or are you okay? Gotcha.
Yeah. I really, for all the time I do spend on a computer, when I don't have to be on a computer, I try to go do something else a little bit. So it's really nice to just have a notebook, and it's also a really great way. I think we were talking about this a little bit before. Is I actually think to become a better animator, you should become a better illustrator, because no one wants to see this is the best easing of my life, but it's just some weird illustration.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's good to kind of like even like know your strengths, know your weaknesses at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
because you even said you're first off, a motion designer over an illustrator, but
Yeah.
you do both.
Yeah,
obviously.
I think I pretty much started more just animation, flash animation, and then I went like totally just motion graphics, and I was always like working with an illustrator who would give me files, and then like just from kind of leaning on somebody so heavy, I kind of got out of illustration myself. But now I'm kind of rewinding that back and keeping a little notebook.
Yeah.
So
No, that is good. And you'll so bring it in Illustrator and kind of
bring it
map
into
out. Okay,
Illustrator, and then actually I'll just show you kind of what I do. I'll create a new document here, or I guess something. Any document will do. But yeah, so I actually, when I am doing
They do want to see your notebook, by the way. So
Oh, no one wants to see
Ah,
that.
yeah,
Don't
we
make
wanna
me
see
dead. No. But yeah, so I actually like to work with really, really simple forms. When you think about motion graphics, you don't. Well, I don't want to say you don't, but it's easier to work with something that is simple, especially when you're going to go do texturing or any other kind of work with it. So I actually like to start with just like your default. So if I was making a hand, I'll do like my blocking outline. I think it's no different than if you're sketching. You do like your outline form, and then you start like building the muscle and all the other parts of the body. But you start off with like this little base of whatever the hand might be. This pretty terrible illustration. But yeah, so like you have something like this. Maybe you just connect it with like the Pathfinder. And then from there, I'll like look at it and maybe start rounding like the corners. I don't know if
go to your sub-selection tool, your white arrow. If that's what you're trying to do.
Sorry, no, I actually there's some other. It's like from Astute Graphics. It's called like dynamic corners. I don't have it on here.
Yeah,
but
I don't think you even need it though. But go to the
Okay.
little guy.
This
One
little guy?
little white arrow, right above it, actually.
Oh, I'm learning something.
There you go.
Oh, there you
Now
go.
grab
Now
it.
we get those little arrows. So, yeah, I guess that's like kind of how I would approach it. Is like you start with just kind of sketching something out. You import that picture, or I import that picture into Illustrator. I make an even more simplified form using just circles, squares, and rectangles, and then from there I can get a shape. So one other thing I really like to do is once I have this simple shape, you don't always want super like, right angles always. So you can press E on your keyboard. I forgot what this tool is called, but I really like using stuff like this where you can like get all kinds of just different looks to it. And all of a sudden, like I'm starting with maybe like right angles, but now I just have a little bit of an angle, but again, it's like everything at once. So that's like you select your thing, you press E, and you can go through and get all kinds of just like weirder kind of designs to your Illustrator. But what's great is this, or your illustration, what's great is it's like a vector thing that then you can take into After Effects and finalize.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And I don't even know what sort of distortion that is, by the way.
No, it's
I think it's
perspective
I don't know.
or something. I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah, so that's my process in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, it's good. So you'll end up with these basic shapes. And again, even those Illustrator files that we shared, very simple, but obviously everything you do in After Effects is where the magic happens,
Yep.
if you will.
Yeah, so that's like the little process there. I don't know if I should hop back to After Effects or dive into...
Yeah, let's dive into After Effects. We see some of this motion going on. I did notice, obviously the inner shadow, but everything we've talked about starts to come to life in here.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just, as you understand the foundation, you can see how this stuff is put together. Because there's even a delay behind her hair, by the way.
Sure.
You probably did that with,
Yeah.
your Midas or something else, but
Yeah, so
you could start to see some of that.
this one is actually all, I believe. We'll kind of take a peek. But yeah, so I think if I press U, I can see all my controls. And this whole animation is actually just 9 keyframes, I think. But yeah, wait, is this? Yeah, this might be 9 keyframes. But yeah, so this is like what I kind of start with. And I'm pushing out all those values to my other values with that magnetism thing. But yeah, so I have like, actually, this might be a kind of good thing to see if we're going through the whole process. If you start with like an illustration, you simplify it in Illustrator, you import it into After Effects, and then this is kind of how I use my comps, is like each comp is kind of like one stage of my animation, if you think about it like that. So I might have this first one here where she's just literally just moving back and forth. So this is just like some basic movement, and then we can go up our hierarchy into the next one. And this one, I guess I worked with position. So this is kind of adding like a little bit of a step to her, but what's really nice is she's in a composition, so it's all together.
Is that her upper body is one composition and
no, so her whole body is in one comp, I guess. And then the reason I have this background is I used this thing called cloth in there, which is from that thing. It kind of adds a little secondary jelly motion to it that is really subtle but adds a lot. And then from there, go up one more comp, and this is where I started working with, I think, scale. So this is where I actually added just a very slight kind of scale up effect to her, just to add, like, again, these layers of motion. So you have like your little rotation, you have a little scale, a little position, but it's all happening at kind of different times.
And I didn't even notice this. I mean, I'm noticing the scale slightly now. I'm trying to.
Well, it's
there we go. I see it. Okay.
Yeah, and we can even like look at what these are. But yeah, this is not even like a fancy kind of ease or anything. But yeah, it's just like adding these layers of motion. You can start to get some fun stuff.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And so yeah, this is. I mean, we kind of worked on something from scratch. I like how you have this layering effect. And we should kind of we actually have, let's see, we have about 40 more minutes.
Okay.
By the way,
and we can
just
definitely like, for other days I'm here, can definitely talk more animation or whatever. But
yeah, I want to definitely I want to get into more animation. I want to get into some pseudo 3D, some 3D stuff, because I'm sure you guys are interested in that, but from a basic level, because we don't want to lose anybody. I think we can always add expressions where applicable. But this is going to be fun overall. We've kind of gone over textures.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of anything else. Like, we even gotten into effects as well in terms of using those, your Luma matte, basically.
Yeah, and you can actually see in this little example here, how I used the color difference key for this girl. You can actually see in her like silhouette of this corrected mode, like what I was able to kind of pull out and then use as my Luma matte is like her pants, her hair. And what's nice is you can use these color difference keys to like even duplicate that layer, and have like a different section of texture. You could have like multiple sections of texture, but it's really cool. And I think just adding texture kind of polishes your project in a really nice way.
Yeah, it does.
So.
It just definitely makes it look definitely less boring rather than a solid color. It just brings it to life. And then you've added that also with the, sort of the inner shadow as well. So
yeah.
Nate's like, in the stream, you're going to create something?
Yes.
Oh,
absolutely.
All right. We can create something.
Mean,
and as Nightbot says, by the way, if you guys want to create something, there's a contest that's going on. Make it impactful. Thank you for posting that, Nightbots. And you created that template. But let's let's dig in it. I mean, obviously, we're sort of working on the animation of that stuff coming together of the outside scene. We can continue that. Do we add more to it?
Sure.
Because we already have that started. I don't feel like we need to start from scratch again.
Okay. Actually, I'm not sure I saved that when I opened this one.
He's that good. Start from scratch.
Yeah, I'll start from scratch. Because
you were so fast, you could do this.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll go through we'll do an animation.
Jeremy, we'll bring the notebook tomorrow. We'll have to dig through his bag when he's not looking. Yeah. I don't think he wants to show it.
Oh, it's just full of cartoon illustrations that aren't so great. So click into.
We want to know that you're human. You're here creating everything like perfect. Come on, let's show some scratches.
Yeah. So if we want to go to the outside scene, I'll just grab my. Is it cool if I like animate it how it would just go quick and animate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to see you go at your pace as if we're not even here. To be honest with you.
All right. So here's my layer. I'm not gonna bother naming it. We want position keys, so I'll grab that.
That's key to the process, not naming.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't ever name your layers. No. You want to always not know what's going on.
You can't change those. Yeah, they're not editable.
Yeah, exactly. It's sometimes, we'll have projects named like 2222 something, and I'll be like, I don't even know what this is anymore. So I am using that little like delay thing just to quickly get some movement in here. I'll add some quick easing. Whoops.
This is good. I actually want to see how you work, not in necessarily demo mode, but in Matt has to get a project done mode.
Yeah, so a little different, I guess. But so I'm gonna just hide some of the layers so I can click through easier to these trees. And I'm going to move my anchor points down to the bottom here of the, actually, let me rewind back. I want to do one other thing before we jump in. It'll be real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll move my anchor points of these trees just down to the bottom. And the reason is I think I want to add, like, as it pops up, kind of a little blink, blink, blink effect.
Fun.
Yeah, just because this scene is full of circles and
Can you make it bend
Sure.
with an effect? I mean, not now, but
Yeah.
is that even possible? Like,
Yeah, totally.
What you would use? That's a detail to talk about later.
yeah, you can go off into crazy land, which is
Anton, good point. We'll talk about that later. Proxies.
proxies. Yeah, proxies are huge time savers, which actually I think we'll have an opportunity to kind of look at here. So another thing is, for this animation, I think I didn't want like centered anchor points for everything, because I think I added like some rotation actually to the two background suns. So if the anchor points aren't centered, you're gonna kind of get a little bit of a wobbly look, if it's not right in the center.
Is there a shortcut key to center the anchor point perfectly?
I know. I want to say it's Shift Option Command. No, Shift Option Command Y is a no. I know there is a center key one. I think it's a funky one. Oh no, it's Shift Command. What's that up arrow mean?
I don't even know.
It's diagonal arrow.
Center, just to go down to layer, transform, center, and view.
Yeah.
I don't know what that up to the
I'm not sure what that is.
left arrow is.
Shift Command left arrow. Maybe that's Control. I don't know what that is. Yeah. So that's how you can center up your anchor points real quick. But yeah, so I have these couple layers, and now I guess I'm ready to animate if your anchor points are set up how you want. So I'm going to have my position property be affected real quick. Whoops. And just add some easing here. So it's going to pop up as a little group, just like this. And we'll kind of tweak this to look a little bit better. Next, I would be working with rotation. So I'd grab my rotation for these trees. And I want to see what else I want to grab. So this will be like my master dude. Grab this, 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 this. And now we'll be affecting rotation together. Move this back in time. And you can see all my trees are going to flip, but they're all coming from the same side, which is not a cool look. So they're all coming up like that, which is not cool. So I want this. I'm going to actually invert. So now this tree should be coming up from the other side in a second. Yeah, and if there's like any questions I could answer or make this a little bit more interesting or better, let me know.
Double click the pan behind tool to center the anchor. We'll have to try that. Tony Babel.
I know that name. I think he's on Dribble, maybe?
Tony, welcome, buddy. Good to have you here. You obviously know your stuff, too. This is good. And I think the up to the left arrow might be on the extended keyboard. Mac keyboard, potentially. We are not sure. I will find out, though. Matt just has to get to work. Just get your... You got work to do, man.
I got work
Make
to
it
do.
happen.
What the heck? So kind of tweaking this, starting to get something I'm a little bit more happy with in terms
Do you know
of
what this is?
the animation.
Up to the left arrow?
And there you go. So I got like my nice little sun scene. Drop this guy into another comp. And I'm just going to be a little lazy here and just scale this up because we'll continually rasterize it in a second. And
They're like, go, Matt, go, Matt, go, go.
okay,
go,
so I got
go,
my
go.
first little piece of the animation. I'll go to, and I guess we'll
Turn up the... Oh, bring it a little...
sorry.
There you are. Let's hear that. Let's hear that silky
The
voice.
silky voice.
Oh, yeah.
A face for radio. So yeah, I'll go and I'll use that nice little trick for the color difference key. Drop that guy onto my duplicated composition. I'll switch my view mode to the corrected. And then we'll just go through and do that same texture technique we did before with import some kind of texture of, I don't know, we'll go with this texture this time. Oh, I think I picked kind of crazy. This is a funny one to have. And Lumamat it. Oh, Luma inverted. And there we go. I guess we have like some crazy weird texture on top of our tree. But so that's like this texture is just the worst. I picked the worst texture ever. I don't know how that happened.
Now you're getting everybody depressed with how fast you're doing this. Thanks for that.
I'm sorry. Hey.
I think the key thing here, so he's using Midas, but the key thing is like, you know, obviously as you get, you know, more advanced into this stuff, you look at shortcuts, and sometimes that might mean plugins.
Yeah,
you know, like Midas, whatever it is.
Yeah,
guys.
you totally
Other
don't.
people are mentioning other ones, but
you really and truly don't need any third-party tools ever to do animation. I think After Effects has every component in it already for you to build your own tools and just explore and do whatever. But sometimes you can find tools that can make things a little bit quicker. So.
Work it. And just to remind you guys, in 30 minutes, we have D.W. Watterson's movie director with their editor, so this will be fun, and Jason Levine, who's manning the controls right next to me. There's his hand. There it is. Whoa, it's getting weird. It's getting weird, guys.
So I guess this would be like my little animation here of the tree. Not quite the same as the first one, but you can go through.
Super fun.
Yeah, it's really, once you kind of know what you want to do, it can be pretty quick. So there's that.
Can you, so I'm just going to throw this out there, because since we're at this point, could you somehow at this point, because we want to create a transition to another scene.
Okay.
Can you like zoom into the sun or zoom into that scene somehow?
Sure.
How would you?
Yeah, if you want to zoom in, again, since these are Illustrator files or vector.
There's a couple different ways we could do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can continually raster, well, actually.
Because there's the easy way, which is just like sort of like zoom up the composition. And the hard way is adding depth and animating each one of those separately.
Actually, there's some kind of funny, a funny other little.
That would be dope. That would be dope.
We could be able to do that, but you can actually add this effect called optics compensation. And actually reverse the lens distortion, and scale this up, and you're gonna notice.
That's what I'm talking about.
It adds a little bit of depth to our scene, and so this is basically gonna be almost like a fisheye lens kind of look. But when you're scaling stuff up, it gives you that that feeling of perspective.
I like it.
So that's a nice little hack for 2D stuff. We'll see how this looks. Sorry, actually, guys. Like, this laptop I have here is 5 years old. It's working hard.
See, there you go. Like, you don't even need like the latest equipment as you're showing.
No.
That's why you brought it. You wanted to demo that you could do this on any laptop.
Totally. Yeah. So if we want to add a
Gerardo, you're right. Do a fisheye zoom. That's exactly what you did. Isn't that what you did?
Kind of. I don't know if he's talking about something different. I was thinking about that with oh, there we go. There's a transition. Thank you, Gerardo. I might have said that wrong.
Gerardo,
I'm sorry, my friend.
He mentioned the fisheye.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's the transition you're looking for, just like as the animation happens, in theory, maybe you got to time this out a little bit better. But yeah, this is actually kind of funny that you're doing this transition here. I actually used this for that blue pyramid. But you're gonna see how, like, you know, we didn't even mess around with like a 3D perspective or anything, but when we preview it, it's gonna start to feel like, whoa, you did a lot of work. I mean,
that's what we want. I want what looks like a lot of work done very easily.
Yeah.
And even this, optics compensation is what you're using.
Yeah, so this is actually another funny one. This typically is used for if you like shot video on a non-standard film lens, maybe something like an iPhone. You sometimes will get a warp, and this is optics compensation is meant to like compensate for that.
Oh, but you use it to actually warp.
Yeah, and so if we should I keep working on this one, or can I jump back to that?
You could jump back to.
Okay. So I should.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we all cool with this? Okay, I won't.
I
guess I will save this one. Yeah,
please.
This time.
Because I'm thinking like we could build over the next couple days. We could build our own demo reel of like, here's the first segment we did, and we can transition into here's another segment.
Sure. Okay, so I'll open up back to that main one, and this is something we'll probably get to cover in the next couple days. But yeah, actually on this pyramid, you're gonna notice like this was actually my transition point. I did use optics compensation. You can actually see how this warp looks really similar to just what we went through, and this is actually me turning down that reverse lens distortion. which is kind of funny. I think this one also had like a twist effect on it or twirl or something.
I love those swooshes, kind of how it starts.
Yeah, it almost you can like kind of fake that you did some hand-drawn animation a little bit.
But can you get, so the fisheye is more extreme, Gerardo says. Well, that works. We can, that's good to know.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, we're done. We're out. No, just kidding.
Really? I was like, man,
we just kind of stopped. We were just like, because we're kind of at a transition point ourselves. Is what it kind of comes
we just
down
transitioned
to.
ourselves. But yeah, what should I jump into here?
Yeah, I think we need to get into. I mean, I think nulls. That stuff's going to kind of come into play when we're doing 3D. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, and actually, what I was even thinking for a transition, if you can go back to the outside scene, I apologize.
Man, I'm so glad I think I named this one.
Because I'm trying to animate us out of this.
Oh,
so we came in, now we need to get out of it. And what is your next setup for getting out of this?
Okay,
do you zoom in further? Does it go away? Does it zoom, like what?
Well, I
what
mean,
else?
you could do
What would
something
do?
as simple as just kind of reversing. Oh, whoopsie. Kind of reversing your animation back out. You could do something like that. I don't know why my son is hanging around. I guess it's going to be a bright day. But we'll kind of preview this. So this is going to be kind of pushing those keyframes back to our out. So we have...
I don't know. Sorry.
No.
And then some other ideas. So we could talk about this all day long. So
Sure.
essentially, what the problem, the thing that what we could do is everything's the same brightness the whole time, but does it change as the sun comes up?
Oh,
so
sure.
Can we lighten that scene and maybe that's how everything kind of comes in.
So I mean, this is so with those like color difference keys, you could actually use those for like a glow effect if you wanted to like do something like that. I mean, in this example, we can actually go new adjustment layer, go to our effects and presets. This is like my most used, honestly, is the glow effect. It makes stuff look really cool, but you kind of can crank these values up.
Yeah, I think that'd be nice. It starts low, and then as that sun kind of comes up,
Gets more intense.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I guess we'll kind of do some keyframes here on this. We'll have to kind of see how this looks. Oh man, see, look, I click something random and we have this weird red effect. But yeah, so
because I almost think that fisheye should be the outro, like the out transition.
Okay, sure.
And the in transition should be just all this stuff coming up and then.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I was just being silly.
Yeah, you were being silly. We'll watch you. Keep you.
So we've got kind of this crazy glow effect.
But it should start when the sun comes up. Sorry to be. Who am I?
No. Hey, you can be picky. You can be picky, man. You're steering the ship.
And feel free, guys. We're open to your comments and questions. This is like, yes, you're right. Samip says this is like 100 tutorial videos merged into one live tutorial.
Sweet. That's pretty awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would watch that over and over again.
So there we go. There's our little build up. And also, I mean, this glow effect is affecting the whole scene. We could have chosen to put this just on our sun, and I also kind of just did weird values here. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, we could always tighten up the timing later because again, as that rises, it's like brighter.
Yeah, and actually, that's one other thing I'll throw in here is like when I'm typically like kind of blocking out animations, like so if you went from you have your storyboard, you have your illustrations, you bring it in. They do this for movies too, where it's called an animatic, where it's almost like a dumb version of the scene, like really basic rudimentary movements. And again, that's kind of how I use my keyframes. I'll use like linear keys all over the place, go in and finalize those easings and movements, and then go and like stylize my whole animation.
Yeah,
but it's definitely working in like little increments.
No, it's perfect because you don't want people to get like maybe you don't want them to even focus on the graphics. You want them to just focus on the motion. Therefore, that's why you do the animatic.
Sure.
So yeah, that's just a simple glow, and that's all we're adding. So it's roughly a custom workspace. Ooh, can you use lights to get that effect?
You probably could. I think for lights you would need actual 3D layers to affect them.
Yeah, that's true.
So since this isn't, I mean, again, like if we just chose to work in a 3D space, we're opening up whole other kind of options. So
and I think something like that would be really interesting to do. So we have our our flat motion where everything's on one plane, but then do we do a different one where it does look like cut paper and everything has depth to it?
Yeah, I mean that's
And like
awesome look.
we could even take the same scene and it's animated like different ways or it has different looks depending on what we're
we
trying
could
to
do some. I mean that's just the wonderful thing about having an animation program. So flexible.
Right. What was the color selection trick tool thing? Oh, color selection. I think you're talking about the Luma mat.
Maybe the color difference key.
Might be.
I'm not sure. But yeah, so
okay, we did this. That's perfect. That's awesome.
We did this.
We did this, guys.
High five.
We'll have that transition out of this, and I think what we do need to cover is nulls and 3D, and I'm thinking of any other tips that come out of.
I have a pretty awesome little project we can jump into in that vectors.
Let's get it. I think we should get some of this. Yeah, let's even if it's kind of tackling a different project. We might just get started and go through a little bit.
We could probably knock this whole thing out.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So we got this phone vector, which is just our simple comp. That's 4 layers. Go and press OK. Click into our composition, and we're going to see these are our nested vector files from Illustrator, which were just in whatever folder that was originally in.
Hey, so look at that! You named your layers.
I know. Woo! Finally, got something right. But yeah, so before I go into 3D, I like to kind of think about what I'm building. So for this example, we're just building a little rectangle. So I'm just going to move my anchor point. You can press Y for the pan behind tool to move it to the side of this, and just kind of move this over close to the layer. It's going to almost look like kind of like if you were setting up. Sorry, I'm just losing.
It's like if
you ever had like a paper airplane, or I'm trying to think of what they're called.
I know.
Where everything's like already cut out. Nothing.
Origami?
I
don't even know.
Yeah,
but basically it's like if it was laying flat on a piece of paper.
Exactly. And so now once you move your anchor points, if you're in a 3D layer, you can't actually modify your anchor points as easily because like it just becomes a little different. So then once you have this set up, you make your layers 3D, and
when you said that about anchor points, where are your current anchor points for these?
So
did you modify those at all?
Yes, I did. I moved them from the center of the compositions. And this is again thinking about like what I'm trying to do with this is rotate it. So I want to have a box, and so since it's going to be easier for me just to like literally rotate it or fold it, I can actually parent these together. So I'll go my front goes to this layer. So my front goes to my right layer, just with the little. You can parent it like this. I don't know if anyone saw that, but you can like pull your thing, connect that.
You're pointing to it, right?
Yeah, connect that to that. So do this, and then that goes back to here. And so what's great is if I press R, I can see all my rotations. Since these are 3D layers, I'm going to have multiple dimensions to work with. And now I can just go this to 90. This one, whoops, wrong layer. This one be back 90, but since they're parented, and then the last layer is going to be back 90 as well. So if we go into a different view here, I'll switch to 2 views, and I'll switch this one to custom view side. You can see if I zoom in here that just by parenting my things and switching my anchor point before, I was able to get like this perfect square layer without having to like actually work in the 3D space. So that's kind of nice. I will switch it back to just the one view, and at this point we'll throw a null in the scene. So Shift Option Command Y, it'll create a null, and we're gonna just try to put this somewhere in our composition around the middle of our layer. You can get creative with where you actually want to put it. You can switch your active camera back to like custom view, or maybe top view would be good, and just move your anchor point for this right to the middle of your little box we created. Go back to your active camera, and then we're gonna parent our back layer, which is the parent of all of our other layers, to the null. And so what happens with that is we're able to, I have caps lock on, you're able to turn this null into a 3D layer, and then you're able to rotate this all as a group. But since if I had kept it not parented to the null and I was rotating around the front, you're gonna get like not the same kind of rotation, because it's in Z space, it's more forward, and it's not in the actual middle of the object. So that's why you want to parent it to a null, I guess.
And what is a null? Okay, somebody wants to know.
A null
this null?
is not an object. It's basically a layer that doesn't render. It's just a layer that has properties but no visual properties. So you're able to like use it as a parent.
Yeah.
So quite literally.
Isn't it funny that some of the simplest things are really hard to explain?
Yeah, no, honestly.
You know, like null. Like a null is just like a null. It's
Yeah,
like
it's
nothing,
like-
but it does,
yeah,
like, it
it does
controls
stuff.
everything, kind of.
Exactly. So yeah, and then for this one, I think I just like added a little rotation to the Z space. I move this over so we're a little centered up. And actually also in this one, another fun thing to do is actually use cameras. You can switch your film sizes and your zoom lengths and all kinds of things just to kind of add a different perspective to your scene. Sorry, let me get a different one. Camera. We'll switch this to like a 28 millimeter. Why is this
Is it camera?
I want to see. Okay, it is working.
Is that active? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Active camera.
Yeah, I think I was just
You don't need to
clicking.
change that to camera 1? I guess it's active. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but so just by using a camera, I think, how do I change? Oh yeah, so Shift Command Y I guess works for a couple different properties, but Shift Command Y you can click into your camera settings, and I believe as you change this, like your presets and zooms, you can actually see this live. So this is it's kind of the same thing we did with optic compensations, where like different scalings or film sizes or angles that you're looking at are going to actually affect that whole scene together, but also give you kind of a different perspective and a standard pseudo 3D look. Yeah, so that's like how you can easily create some 3D looking stuff.
Yeah, no, it's good. So basically what you did is we had a sort of a floor plan view, sort of like everything was flat.
Yep.
You modified the the center points.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all kind of at least where you want them to be, depending on where you're going to eventually rotate it.
Yep.
You linked everything together, and you could kind of describe everything you
Yeah,
did,
so
by
then
the
I
way.
just,
like
like
doing a quick overview to bring us up to speed.
Sure, yeah, so I took the illustrators in here, kind of went to that view of everything almost like unfolded, and then thinking about how I wanted to fold this object, I parented it, and then using my anchor points was able to rotate it to build out my little square. Yep, a little swipe action. Yeah, and so then I have just my spinning little circle, and then I actually animated my camera here.
And before that, like you added the null, and then you parented that parent to the null. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
So that guy.
Yes.
You parented that to
Yes.
the null.
So my one main parent for all my cell phone layers is parented to a null, which is like actually affecting everything at once. So we have like the same pivot point for all of our layers.
And I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can you, because somebody mentioned lights earlier, could you add a light source so maybe you were catching a little bit of highlight?
Probably. Let's see if we can. Add a little spotlight action here. Kind of tweak this up. But yeah, I mean, I think you could probably get some really cool looks by playing around with this. Toggle down here.
Yeah, Stefan, we'll show the anchor points too here in a sec.
Yeah. But so if we want to see the anchor points, I can kind of just do that again real quick if anyone wants to see. We import it with the layer sizes. When you click into your composition, this is how it imports, and you're going to see our anchor points in the dead center of each of the items. You can use a tool like the pan behind tool with snapping enabled if you want to snap to like the side. Hold Y and just kind of drag over and snap it.
There we go.
You can snap this one, you can snap this one, and then snap this one. And then you just kind of pull the layer over close to the center layer, just like this. And then, yeah, this guy parents to this guy. And then this guy parents to this guy. And now I have my one layer. So if I rotate it, oopsie, obviously
Yeah, you
didn't.
need to do one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I rotate it, it should rotate as a group. From there, you convert it to 3D. You press R, and then you're just going to go and get the right turns. But it's just kind of nice when things are parented to like only have to use 90 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
It makes
And
it
it's
really
because
easy.
you have the anchor point in the right spot.
Yep.
Too, for sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of the quick way to do
Michael
that.
says you're his favorite After Effects teacher.
Thank you so much, my
Awesome.
friend. That's really cool.
Yeah, so Helen, this is the idea. We're trying to make this easy, and I thank you so much for explaining this like a couple times, because it all does make sense to me. Sort of bringing this all together, and then you end up adding the null, which is going to control it eventually in like a 3D space is kind of what I consider
Yeah, and
that.
so even though these are 3D layers and they're parented right and all to one layer, so our back controller is actually like the rotator, our anchor point is actually sitting in Z space on this front layer. So when I rotate, that's actually my rotation point. So if you're looking for like, and that's like, it's just like this weird kind of warpy thing that you kind of notice is like if you're rotating like this, it's rotating around the front, but if you parent this to a null and put it actually in the center, I'll just create a new null object, kind of move this over. If you have the pivot point actually in the center of your object, very loosely, and parent this, then when you rotate your null, if I did this, oh, sorry, actually did not do this right yet. Gotta move this guy back. Yeah, so right there, and yeah, parent your back layer to the null, and then you'll be able to kind of rotate around the null. So your center point is makes a lot more sense visually. Yeah, and then from there, it's kind of nice. You can throw a camera into the scene and just make that animation seem a little bit more interesting, and then maybe switch the background color to something so it all seems connected.
Boom.
Yeah.
And then boom. And I liked what you're doing. Do you still have that view where you're adding a light, and that was looking really cool?
Okay, yeah, I got rid of the light just because we went back to anchor points. I'll add it again, though. So you add a light to the scene. Since these are 3D layers, we can kind of start playing around with where it is in the scene, and this will affect it as it rotates around. So we'll just see how this looks. But yeah, I mean, right there we have something that looks okay. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I like, well, and I like the idea of just having like a simple, just a highlight, because I think when you have that highlight, it just adds a little bit more depth to it. Almost too much right now, because there's like almost too much of a gradation.
Sure.
But just to catch a hint of that light, and because somebody actually asked about it earlier. So it is pseudo 3D. It's not actually like a 3D model. Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I'd have to.
Have you ever dove into like Cinema 4D or anything like
Yeah,
that?
I actually I'm a big time 3D animator as well. But at the end of the day, I think After Effects is still my go-to. I'm so comfortable in it, and it's so fun. At this point, just like once you know a program, it's a lot more fun to use. But yeah, I love Cinema 4D too. So kind of cool. Sorry, this light effect is not the best right now. I don't use the 3D lights that much, so I'm a little not the best with it, to be honest. But we can try to get something. Maybe add some.
Can you increase the well, anyway.
I might also be just being a funny one. Maybe point. No, point is gonna be everything. Yeah, I might need to take another look at the light setups, so I don't look so silly. But yeah.
No,
so
that's
that's
awesome.
a little
That
3D
was actually
workflow.
a lot faster than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
so.
it's really easy, and like that's actually funny if we go back to kind of our blue pyramid that maybe we'll cover later this week. You're gonna see like it has textures in it that we talked about. It has the kind of optic compensation thing you talked about. I mean, this is how you create a 3D layer. For this pyramid example, same principle we just kind of went through. As I click in here, I don't know what these names are. We're really diving in. But yeah, so these layers just had kind of a different like pivot point where I connected them all, and then to rotate them all to the same point, like their anchor points were right in the middle, so they could all meet at the center.
Yeah. And so effectively you could even unfold it if you wanted to animate that part.
Yeah.
Right from the bottom.
Hey, Kuhn. That's my buddy, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah, he is awesome.
Oh yeah, did he work on
Yes.
Midas?
Yes, this is my friend from the Netherlands. He's currently on a world trip. It's pretty interesting. If anyone's super bored on Instagram, Vespa Vibes, he's taking a world trip for the next year from driving on a Vespa with his best friend from the Netherlands all the way down to New Zealand. So it's quite a journey, but it's a good follow. It's a worth a follow on Instagram, I'll tell you that.
Wait, on a Vespa?
On Vespa, like
From
a little
the
scooter.
Netherlands to New Zealand?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're making it happen. It's pretty funny.
I'm not. How do you? All right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a road that went from Netherlands to New Zealand.
Yeah, you know what?
Just kidding.
Maybe a question for Kuhn. I don't know where he's traveling.
Come on.
Oh, look, Andrew.
That's cool. So, in fact, there are. Actually, I don't know who mentioned this. There's also lighting systems that you could probably get a hold of as well.
Sure,
that might
yeah.
help.
There's like the, I mean, honestly, probably the best like lighting effect that I really like to use is the Video Copilot optical flares. I really recommend.
Video Copilot's optical flares.
Yeah, I mean, those aren't like the same kind of lighting effects. It's kind of like an overlay, but you can kind of cheat.
And that's what we're
effect.
talking about. Like, I think
Yeah.
you know, cheating and basically like arriving at effects with the least amount of resistance is kind of what we're doing there. And I think we see all of this stuff happening. Everything you've talked about, you just demystified most of it, except for maybe that, which we could talk about later, the textures moving inside of the squares. But
yeah, and I think you know, on the other days maybe we can like dive more into the actual animation stuff, or like the process of animation. But I think we kind of gave a good overview of how I approach animation, how texturing works.
I mean, I still have plenty of questions for all of this.
Good.
Sure, there's that. You demystified that. We can kind of see how this comes in. That's all done with Midas, right?
Yes,
with
yeah.
the one expression, essentially. How this hair moves. First of all, you already talked about the inner shadow.
Sure.
And I can see that texture and everything. So that's all making sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is how you got that hair looking so
Right,
natural.
yeah. So thank you for the question.
Yeah.
This is actually another Midas thing. It's kind of interesting. But yeah, you add, so everyone knows the puppet pins, which are one of the, again, I think something that's probably not used enough. If you do Command P on your keyboard,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you can bring up puppet pins.
Yes.
And that's like, I mean, a whole
Oh,
new,
so awesome.
yeah, if you're not familiar with that, it's a whole new world, basically. So this, just put it into cloth real quick. Yeah, so with this one, basically what it does is it pushes like that Midas delay drag magnetism kind of stuff to the puppet pins actually. So you can get that really natural movement.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and
I
it,
just added 3 pins, and then the delay is attached to the pins, right?
Yep.
The delay, magnetism, whatever.
Yeah, and you can I mean you can take it a lot farther. You can start messing with like the what's it called, the starch tool, and like really tailor your movements. But it's a lot of fun. So that's like the
Yeah, starch just like, it's sort of,
yeah, you like kinda,
solidify your movements, like
Exactly, you
whether
see.
it's more warpy or not.
yeah, it's like giving it a little tap. Say
I-
don't move.
I know your intention was like, I don't really want to like Midas. You're like, I don't really want to like. This is kind of
Yeah.
how I work. I know this was not a sales thing for Midas,
not at
but
all.
then I'm starting to realize, like, I want it.
Sweet. Hey,
I'm gonna get it free for 7
check
days.
it
at
out. No,
least,
totally.
So that's good.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. I mean, it might not be for everybody, but I think it's it's a tool that can do a lot.
mean,
Also, I'll throw
yeah.
out there, if anyone is interested in checking it out, you can use the code Adobe Live.
Nah. Oh, really?
Yeah, at
There's a
checkout
code,
for, I
Adobe
think-
Live, to get a discount.
Yeah, for 20% off. So
I'm
pretty
also
sweet.
curious out there to like what plugins or what plugins you guys use. If you want to do a shout out to your favorite, would love to hear about it in the chat. So, any plugins or expressions or whatever you guys use, kind of curious. This is your chance. And what we got, like 3 minutes, 2 minutes.
2
Oh,
minutes.
this is
Oh my
exciting.
gosh. It's like a
D.W. Watterson and Simone Smith. They're over there. They're in the room,
Yeah, I
in
see
the
'em.
house.
Look at
Good
that.
to see you guys. Coming up in about a minute and a half. Again, director and video editor with Jason Levine. So they're gonna
It's
be
gonna be
with
a
us
good
for the
time.
next 2 hours. How'd
Yeah.
you like it? This your first time streaming? Feel good?
Man, I'm pretty camera shy, so thanks for sticking through
For
that.
all the videos you produce, it's like none of them are of
No,
you.
no,
This is the
no.
first time you've seen his face. Look, he
Yeah,
has a face,
I
everybody.
know. Yeah, I try to hide that. But yeah, so
They dig it.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to you, man.
sweet. Thank you so much. And also,
Congratulations, awesome.
everyone should check out Andrew Embry, who is going to be presenting later today. Who's an awesome animator, has some really cool tips to show, I'm sure.
Yeah, 1
So,
p.m. Pacific time. So, yeah, wrapping up here. Guys, stay with us. Matt's going to be with us tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. PST. So thanks so much. But stick around, guys. We'll be back in a minute. Thanks so
Cool.
much for watching. See you guys.
Sweet. Thank you.